On this episode of Mike Drop Dallas, we're talking about the latest developments around the 2026 World Cup coming to town. It'll be here before you know it. So get in the know here on season 3, episode 8. Let's drop the mic and let's go. Welcome to Mike Drop Dallas, everyone, the official podcast of the Dallas Sports Commission. Kevin Sullivan here, along with Monica Paul, the executive director of the Dallas Sports Commission, and our on-air producer, Next Level, Marcus Carr. Monica, Next Level and I are going to turn the tables a little bit and interview you as our first guest. This is our last episode for a little bit as we take just a little bit of a summer break. And we want our listeners to know everything they need to know about World Cup coming in 2026. But first, just a quick note, lots going on in DFW sports as always. The Rangers are in first place. Mic drop moment there. Stars made it to the conference finals before running into a Vegas Golden Knights buzzsaw. We record this on the day of Game 4. I'll be out there tonight at the AAC doing my best. WNBA underway with the Wings off to a good start. And, of course, the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship is underway at PGA Frisco, the first of many major championships coming to the new home of the PGA. So before we dive into World Cup, anything not World Cup related happening at the Sports Commission that you want to preview, since this will be our last episode for a little bit?
Well, we're finishing up this weekend, Big 12 baseball championships at Globe Life Park, big USA Volleyball, US Opens, and their annual meeting taking place in Dallas at the Convention Center through Memorial Day weekend and into next week as well. Probably our main focus will kind of go back to soccer a little bit, as we do have the CONCACAF Gold Cup quarterfinal taking place in July over at AT&T Stadium. But really, we're going to get into a bid season here a little bit in June. The NCAA opens up a 4 to 5 year bid cycle for all of their championships events outside of the men's and women's Final Four. So some other great opportunities for, possibly Frozen for women's volleyball championships. There's a lot of interest from numerous universities here within the DFW area to engage in maybe some golf championships. So that'll be a big focus for us. CONCACAF Nations League finals for 24, Copa America bid was just due. So anticipating a lot more of the bid activity this summer, because truthfully, our event schedule gets a little lighter, which we welcome sometimes for at least a few weeks
But I know you love bid season, and it's tons of work goes into it. So good luck with all of those. I can't think of a better area to bring golf to, and volleyball and everything else. As we know, this is a rocking sports market, and people love coming here. All right, let's set the stage on World Cup 2026. Named host city in June of 2022, thanks to the hard work and leadership of you and your team at the Sports Commission, along with all the local businesses and the pro teams, and of course FC Dallas and the Hunt family, and huge news. The World Cup will be contested in 16 North American cities between June 8th and July 3rd, 2026, 11 cities in the U.S., of course, including right here out at AT&T Stadium, 2 cities in Canada, 3 in Mexico. Marcus, take it away.
Like Sully mentioned, named host city in last June. Since then, what kinds of preparations are already underway from your team in FIFA?
Well, kind of a lot in many directions. Obviously, we're still working on a transformation plan at AT&T Stadium with their staff and FIFA on what preparations need to be made to the stadium, mainly over in the corner areas for the pitch size. So still working through that. A lot of work has gone into getting the structure put together for our host committee. So hopefully here within the next 2 weeks, all of that will be finalized and we'll be able to roll that out and get moving. Some analysis for host city supporter programs has been going on. Each city has the opportunity to engage and sell and acquire partners for the World Cup. Only 10 of them. So we're trying to evaluate what assets do we have, what opportunities to, create events leading up to the World Cup that different organizations or families or companies or, or already possibly some of FIFA's global partners may want to engage in here locally. Discussions around legacy programs and continuing to build those out. Probably the main functions. And then obviously I know we're going to talk about brand launch, but that has been pretty busy over the last month and a half preparing for that.
You just mentioned the brand launch. We took an extra step closer to the World Cup 2026. And everybody has asked this question. And so I'm just going to ask it. When do you think we'll know what games we're getting?
Yes, it is the hottest question now to talk about World Cup. We're fairly confident that in September of this year, FIFA will announce the match schedule, which will give all of the host cities an idea of here's the number of matches, here's the level of matches, here's the date timelines. We know the final will be played on July 19th, but still kind of waiting and confirming on that start time or date.
What is the timeline of key dates, Monica, in terms of everything from volunteer registration, vendor opportunities, even tickets on sale? How does all of that roll out?
Yeah, so at the end of June, we'll get some updated host city requirements. So cities will have a true idea of here kind of all of our responsibilities, any updates from maybe what we had seen when we were in the bid process 5-6 years ago, anticipating that after that match schedule, I think that's when we're looking to start engaging with our host city supporters. And then FIFA won't actually have tickets out on sale until 2024. So there'll be some different rollouts that take place there, but they'll control all of those tickets along with any of the hospitality partners that they choose. In terms of signing up for volunteer, you can go to our website right now, dallasfwc26.com, and sign up to be put on a list that you're interested in volunteering. We don't have volunteer opportunities up yet, but as we start to do a little bit more activations, have ancillary events that are pertaining to the World Cup in 2026, probably starting in 2024, we'll definitely have those opportunities. So that'll kind of be an evolving door there. I do know that FIFA is sending out different vendor opportunities more on the branding and awareness. So I think as they're looking to find local vendors, some of that'll start this year and go all the way through 2026. So we'll try to share those opportunities out through our, whether it's social channels or through our MWBE programs here at the Sports Commission, to be able to share those opportunities out here locally.
Some people will remember when World Cup was here in '94, the International Broadcast Center was also here out at Fair Park. I know you bid again for that and are kind of down to the wire there. When do you expect to know about whether or not Dallas has been chosen as the International Broadcast Center?
Yeah, well, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern now. I actually just sent some notes and messages about this yesterday. Like, hello, we need to have an idea, because truthfully, we do need a lot of renovations that need to take place at Fair Park in those buildings. If we are going to be hosting, those renovations are already planned. They're happening regardless if we get the International Broadcast Center or not, but starting to have some concern on a timing standpoint, since we are already to the middle of 2023 almost. Honestly, I feel like it's any day. We've pretty much answered any of the questions that FIFA has as it pertains to the International Broadcast Center. Looking at some, other opportunities or some other additional ancillary space that could enhance that experience. So we're in a holding pattern, a wait and see right now. So, but I anticipate knowing that answer here much sooner than September with the match schedule.
It is really early, but based on, all the World Cups you've attended in the past, what types of community activations, fan experiences can we expect beyond the matches?
Well, there'll definitely be fan festival. So each host city has to host a fan festival that takes place every day of the World Cup, regardless if you have a match in your market on that day. So you're looking at 35, 40 days worth of fan festivals taking place. I think in addition, because of the scope of our region and the various cities, and we want to make sure that we have either fan festivals or fan zones to really incorporate that World Cup spirit and have all of our international visitors and guests be able to experience the different cities and flavors within our region. So incorporating Fort Worth and Frisco, obviously Arlington has a stadium, but what are some special things that we can do around Texas Live and at Choctaw Stadium? A lot of different opportunities there. I think you'll start to see in 24 a higher brand presence of that 2026 logo in the downtown areas that'll like permanent installations and those types of things too.
We're going to bring Jeff Carlisle on here in a moment to talk a little bit about the branding and, all of that. We unveiled the Dallas brand last week. Monica, can you give some thoughts on that aspect of moving the process along?
Yeah, so it was a process that really started, I guess, back in February. And in truth, last August, FIFA asked each city, sent us a questionnaire basically asking, a lot of brand questions. They already had some thoughts, but at least allowed us to provide some feedback of that. And then came to Dallas in February and unveiled what was our very first look at this 2026 brand and the holistic from a overarching FIFA brand and what that looked like, and then kind of explain the different thoughts on colors, how they came up with colors for each city. Obviously for us focusing more on the Dallas, we got to see snippets of some of the other cities, but that actually where we saw everything come together was a little bit later over the last month and a half in that process. So a lot of meetings, and we really did do or try to incorporate all of our main, larger regional cities here, and had representation from Dallas, from Fort Worth, from Frisco, from Arlington, various CVBs, FC Dallas, obviously the Cowboys and AT&T Stadium with their brand inclusion incorporated into it. So I think it's still evolving at the same time. So we'll continue to have bi-weekly meetings to kind of discuss the playbook, messaging that goes around it, incorporation of a lot of different marketing elements, because even though we had that brand launch last week, obviously that is something that has to continue all the way through 2026 and really have a build up there.
Monica, you've given us a lot to think about, all exciting. We'll continue the conversation with ESPN senior writer Jeff Carlisle in just a few minutes. But first, over to Rachel with a word from one of our sponsors.
The Perot Museum of Nature and Science plays a vital role in preparing the most talented and diverse STEM workforce of tomorrow right here in Dallas. Become a member today and enjoy free admission and other valuable benefits to support this nonprofit landmark. Visit perotmuseum.org for more information.
Thanks, Rachel. And now we're happy to be joined by ESPN senior writer Jeff Carlisle. Covers soccer, been at the worldwide leader for more than 13 years. Jeff, Welcome to Mike Drop Dallas. Appreciate you making some time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So lots to talk about here, Jeff. But before we get to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, Women's World Cup starts here July 20th in stadiums across Australia and New Zealand. Can you give us a preview of what to expect there?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fantastic event, I think, and one that's going to generate a ton of excitement in the United States. I mean, I think that's true for any World Cup, whether it's a men's World Cup or a women's World Cup. But, you know, given the women's team's dominant place in the world of women's soccer, I think there's always a little bit of extra excitement that accompanies that tournament. You know, expectations are always incredibly high for that team. It's amazing. I mean, and you know, you see it throughout sports. It's like, you know, if you don't win, then you know, questions start to get asked, you know, about what happened. So, you know, in terms of the U.S. team, they're at an interesting place. I mean, they've tried to, you know, Vlaka Andonovski, the manager's tried to bring in some new players, but, you know, they've had some tough injuries with Mallory Swanson and now Katarina Macario. Both are set to miss the tournament. But fortunately for the U.S., they have such a deep team that I think they'll be able to compensate for that. But yeah, it's a lot of excitement. I'm looking forward to going. I'm going to be in New Zealand for the group stage. They're two fantastic countries, you know, and Australia is just a sports mad country, as is New Zealand. Usually that's centered around, you know, rugby, but and you know, Aussie rules football for Australia, but they love their soccer too. So you know, it's going to be, I think, a fantastic event. And yeah, again, I'm really looking forward to going and seeing how the U.S. team does.
So I have one more non-World Cup question for you. Our FC Dallas is off to a pretty good start here. MLS also just announced the expansion to San Diego. What do you think is driving the impressive growth in the MLS?
Well, I just think the sport itself continues to gain more and more acceptance. I mean, I'm 58 years old, so I'm old enough to remember when soccer was kind of looked down upon as, you know, not really a sport, you know, not really something that people should spend their time concentrating on. But I think, you know, ever since World Cup '94, I think, and even before that, there's been a slow, steady progression where the game has kind of become more ingrained in the sports consciousness in the United States. You see it every World Cup, but you see it in MLS just with again the number of expansion teams. You know, they just announced team number 30, like you said. The NWSL, I think, is poised for a period of really rapid growth. You know, they just announced a team in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. And, you know, I think there's another one in Boston that's expected to come down the pike. So, and then the youth game has always been super strong. And Dallas knows that well with the Dallas Cup. You know, that's a tournament that a lot of fantastic players have kind of maybe announced themselves to the world a little bit, or given the world a little bit of a preview of what they can do. So, you know, I think all of those things, when you add them up, it's created an environment where the game has been able to grow from a fan perspective, from an investment perspective. And I think you've seen good results in the field too. You know, it was good to see that the U.S. men get to the last World Cup. And like I mentioned before, the women are always fantastic and favorites to win world titles. So again, I think it's been a real healthy mix of factors that have seen the game grow.
So now transitioning over to this 2026 World Cup logo, I want to get your thoughts, Jeff, on the logo and the logo announcement that FIFA did last week.
I gotta admit, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, that's it, because it seemed kind of plain to me. And I think FIFA would have been better off if they had shown, I think, the various logos from all the cities. And listen, I get how each city kind of wanted to have, a moment where they had the stage to themselves and was able to, kind of highlight what makes their town unique and what they're going to bring to the tournament. But it was, I just remember the past logos from, going all the way back to, to Spain '82. It was always a little bit more intricate. And so this one was very simple in its design. But I think like you said earlier, I think this is going to evolve a little bit. And, I think we're going to see, more elements as time goes on about the tournament and also the uniqueness that each city is going to bring to the tournament as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Even when I was watching the announcement out of LA on that Wednesday night, I believe, knowing that our brand launch was happening at 5 a.m. the next morning, as I was sitting there, I'm like, it doesn't resonate, or it's missing something if you don't like unveil all of the host city logos at once. So I do think that maybe that might have been a better approach there. So Jeff, I think some of the feedback on the logos is, well, one, this is the first time the logo includes the World Cup trophy, but two, not having the logo, the overall one, not the city specific ones, incorporate the different countries, the 3 different countries that are hosting this World Cup. Thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, it makes for a kind of a tricky set of circumstances because, it's not just one country celebrating its culture, celebrating the fact that it's hosting this tournament. You got 3 very different countries. They might all be in North America, but it's every single one of the 3 is bringing something unique. And so I think that was definitely a challenge. But I think as time goes on, I think the fact that they are all different, I think it's going to bring something really special to this tournament. And obviously Mexico, they love their football. They love the sport and they have a huge history with it. Having hosted the tournament, previously, Canada hosted a Women's World Cup. So, and obviously their men's team is started to really make strides, and their women, have been very good as well. They've kind of been the main rival for the US, back in the days. And then they won the Olympics too. So, again, and then, the US, I think there's a lot of fond memories of World Cup '94. I wasn't working in journalism then, but I went to a lot of the games as a fan, and it was I just remember feeling so much joy seeing my sport, get all that attention, positive attention too. It was, I just remember the atmosphere of games was fantastic. I can't remember any problems to speak of. There were some problems with the heat. So, hopefully with some of the indoor venues that are being used this time around, that will help with that. But some great games as well. I remember the game in Dallas with Brazil and the Netherlands. That was probably the game of the tournament, just in terms of changes in momentum and excitement, and 2 great teams on display as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Jeff, we were here in Dallas named by the Sports Business Journal as the #1 city in America in which to conduct sports business. Obviously, FIFA bringing World Cup here played a role in that calculation, and will also take Dallas as a sports destination to yet another level. We have a lot going for us here, clearly, but what do you think was most appealing to FIFA about coming back to Dallas, and especially considering how many cities bid, and not everybody who bid there's 11 cities, but almost 20, right, or so we're in the competition. So what do you think FIFA saw in DFW?
Well, I think they saw a few things. I think they saw history, not just the World Cup. Dallas has continued the Dallas area has continued to host soccer events since that time. I think you look at AT&T Stadium. I think they looked at that venue and the amount of people it can hold. I mean, was it 92,000? Am I right on that? I think, when FIFA thinks about the number of fans that are going to be able to attend these games and the number of tickets that are going to be sold, I mean, Dallas is going to be a big part of that. And, I think culturally, the city has shown a huge affinity for the game. Like I said earlier, with Dallas Cup, with FC Dallas, with the events that they've hosted over there. I think the first time I went to AT&T Stadium was the 2017 Gold Cup. I mean, that 6 years ago. So, I think it's just, I think Dallas just has it checks a lot of different boxes. And so, I think when you add that all together, also the fact that it's, in the central time zone, I think, you want some geographical dispersion, if you will, in terms of what your host cities are. And there's always going to be a huge concentration on the East Coast, a little bit on the West Coast, but you need cities in the center of the country as well. And so I think when you add it all up, Dallas was kind of a no-brainer.
Monica laid out the timeline a little bit. Do you want to make a prediction on where the final ends up?
Ooh,
yeah.
I mean, I think Dallas is in the running again, just because of that stadium. And, obviously they've hosted Super Bowls and whatnot. I keep hearing LA. I mean, the fact that I was in LA, for that event that Monica alluded to, I think there were a lot of questions from the local press there about whether they were going to get the final, but Gianni Infantino was not going to be drawn into that.
Right.
We'll see. I think the candidates are New York, LA, and Dallas. And again, I think it's because of that stadium. I mean, they just, again, it's hosted big events. And it's a fantastic venue. I mean, I've walked in there and just kind of been in awe. So, I think those three are probably the front runners for that.
We're optimistic, but we're not gonna jinx by talking about it too much, right, Monica?
Okay.
One more. I know a lot can happen in 3 years, but let's look into your crystal ball one more time and let's talk a little bit about who you think might be on the roster. Who is shaping up, for 3 years from now to be some of the mainstays on the U.S. team?
Well, I think a lot of the narrative around the 2022 team that went to Qatar was how young it was. It was a lot of young players who were just starting out, maybe not necessarily just starting out, but really just starting to establish themselves at big clubs in Europe. You had guys like Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams. I mean, I think those are the three big names that I would still expect to be in the team, health permitting. I mean, that's always an issue. Would still be in the team when 2026 rolls around. I mean, Tyler Adams is the captain. He was the captain in Qatar, and I think he's just a super impressive guy. I mean, just the way that he carries himself. I mean, I remember during the press conference prior to the Iran match, him being thrown some pretty prickly questions from the Iran press, and he just handled them with so much composure and so much grace. And obviously he's a fantastic player in the field too. I mean, he wouldn't be in the team if he wasn't. So and he brings, a bite and an energy and a tenacity that every team needs. And so and then Christian Pulisic, I think, is the other one that should be there. We'll see what his club situation ends up being. It looks like he's going to leave Chelsea, but he's the most dynamic attacking player that the U.S. has at the moment. And then Weston McKennie, he's kind of the do everything guy, a Dallas product. So I think he's another guy that will be in the mix as well.
We were all blown away here a couple of years ago by Ricardo Pepi during his FC Dallas, this incredible run that he had. Where is he in he didn't make it for the 22 team, was in the final consideration. I know his career hasn't necessarily gone exactly as the trajectory may have seemed when he was here, but give us a quick update on Ricardo Pepi.
He's on an upward trajectory again. He was
Good.
with Augsburg in the Bundesliga and really struggled. But then he was loaned out to a team in the Netherlands called Groningen. The team didn't do very well. They got relegated, but he ended up having a really good season. So he had, I think, 12 goals for a not very good team. So and he's generating a lot of interest from some of the top teams in the Netherlands now. Feyenoord and PSV Eindhoven. So those are two big Dutch clubs that are showing some interest in him. I think that would be a great move for him because the Dutch league is one that really develops players, really hones them. You think about a guy like Michael Bradley from the US who played in Holland for a while. That stint served him well. Josie Altidore is another one who did well when he was there with AZ Alkmaar. So I think if Pepe stays in Holland but gets to a bigger club, then he'll really be put in a position to shine. And he scored a big goal for the U.S. in the Nations League against El Salvador. So that was a kind of a tough, cagey game, but he was able to come through for the U.S. So, I think he had that initial, meteoric rise, and then it leveled off a little bit, but now I think he's on an upward trajectory again. So I think a lot of fans are still, they still have big hopes for Ricardo Pepi.
Before we let you go, I noticed that you have a degree from Northwestern, or 2 degrees maybe, in computer science and mechanical engineering. Way too much math and science for me, Jeff, but you started out as a software engineer. It looks like you spent 6 years at Oracle. How the heck did you end up as a senior writer at ESPN covering soccer with a background as a software engineer?
Man, how much time do you have? Yeah, so it was the end of '99, and I did the Oracle thing for 6 years, and then I worked for a startup for 6 years, and we went public and had the rocket ride, and then cratered, and kind of the dead cat bounce after that, and we got acquired. And that's working for a startup is intense, and it really, just personally, it took a lot out of me. And I kind of decided that wasn't really what I wanted to do anymore. I mean, I was looking for something different. And so I played soccer in college. So I already had a little bit of a background in the game, and I got into coaching. And then a guy that I met in coaching ran a website that covered soccer in the San Jose area. And I thought, that seems like it might be a lot of fun. It get me connected to the game in a different way. And so he took me on sight unseen. And then I kind of just chipped away at it. I did that for a little bit, started stringing for newspapers, started reaching out to magazines. And then around 2005, I reached out to ESPN, and it was, I guess you could say the rest is history. I mean, it was kind of an extended tryout, but they liked what I did. And, I'd say it was like a 5-year process before I actually started writing for ESPN. So it was just something that I kind of fell in love with and was able to make work. But yeah, I mean, I've done things in this job that I never thought I'd get to do, go to World Cups, go to Copa Americas, meet fantastic players. Yeah, it's been an incredible ride, and it's been really enjoyable.
So Jeff, you're going into kind of the topic of my next question. I also sometimes I took this last semester off, teach at SMU, introductory course, really contemporary issues in sport management, and this is where the students are trying to figure out if they want to continue on and actually get a degree in sport management or not. And where I try to tell them it's not all about, it's not all fun sometimes, but try to give them advice along the way. So for those that, may want to be write for ESPN or, be in sports or journalism or broadcasters, whatever it may be, what advice would you give them to help them on their journey?
Yeah, I mean, try to find as many outlets for your work as you can, whether it's, your own website, whether it's the school newspaper, or, if you're in high school, whether it's the yearbook, just try to find as many outlets for your writing as you can, just so that you can develop. Writing is like a muscle. It requires repetition, and you've got to keep doing it. Otherwise, your skills are going to get stale. I mean, if I had one regret about my career, it's that I only speak English. I don't speak Spanish. I mean, I think being multilingual, not just in print journalism, but I think in any kind of journalistic endeavor, I think being multilingual is a huge, huge asset. I mean, I speak what I call survival Spanish. If I go to a country in Central America, or if I go to Mexico, I mean, I speak enough Spanish to get around, but certainly I'm not proficient in it enough to do an interview or anything like that. So, and then that just, not even from the interview aspect, just the making connections aspect. I mean, if we're multilingual, it's just a lot easier to develop relationships and get to know people in their native tongue. So, I mean, I just think that's a huge advantage, and something that I wished I'd spent a little bit more time on when I was coming through.
What recommendation do you have, Jeff, for Dallas area, avid sports fans who are not soccer fans? What should they be doing now to get ready for 2026?
I mean, just start consuming the game. I mean, just start exposing yourself to the game. I mean, in whatever way that they want to do that. Now, if that means getting up on a Saturday morning and watching the Premier League, great. If that means going to an MLS game, fantastic. If that means going to watch college soccer, I mean, any of those things. I mean, it's, people, the game is so vast. I mean, it has so many different levels, and the same level isn't going to appeal to everybody. For some people, it's watching their local club, whether it's a USL team or any of the other leagues that are out there. So, I mean, just start absorbing as much of the game as you can. And it's not for everybody. I mean, I personally, I don't know how people watch golf. I mean, I just don't. But again, that's just me. So, and you don't know what part of that sport is going to grab you. I remember I grew up in South Florida, and we had an NESL team back in the day, and it was our team. It wasn't Miami. It was Fort Lauderdale. That's where I grew up. And so, that was what really kind of just got me hooked on the game. And so, you never know when that light's going to go on for somebody in terms of becoming a fan of the sport. And I guess my point in all this is that there's a lot of different entry points where you can get into it. I mean, some people get into it through their kids, through youth soccer. So, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that people can be exposed to the game, enjoy the game. But yeah, start now, because that way when 2026 rolls around, you won't be playing catch up, and you can enjoy the game and enjoy what's going on even more.
It seems like a long way off, but it'll be here before you know it.
Oh yeah, it's crazy how, like, a World Cup cycle just, you think it's 4 years, and then you blink and it's over. So yeah, it's going to come up quick.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Jeff. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and on behalf of Monica Paul and the Dallas Sports Commission, we appreciate Jeff joining us today. Thanks to the Mic Drop production team, Next Level Marcus Carr, Jason Kurtz of Tony Fay PR, of course, our showrunner, Tony Fay. Until next time, we'll be back in a little bit after taking a few weeks off. Thanks for listening, everybody.